Hi guys, it's Dacia with Teslarati. I'm here to tell you about some electric vehicle media travel that I did this week. We were invited to attend Nikola World 2019. If you haven't heard of them, Nikola Motor Company is a hydrogen electric transportation company. They are probably best known for their hydrogen electric semi-trucks, of which now they have 3 that they've unveiled. They're probably going to be set to compete against the Tesla Semi in the future. In 2016, Nikola Motor unveiled their first hydrogen electric semi-truck, and it's a full cab, Class E big rig. And then this last week they unveiled 2 more, which are smaller. One is called the Nikola 2, it does not have the full cab in it, and then the Nikola Tre, which is their semi-truck for the European market. Prior to attending the event, I was under the impression there would be an unveiling of the battery-only versions of the Nikola 2 and the Nikola Tre, because Trevor Milton, the CEO and founder of Nikola Motor, he had tweeted something out to that effect. However, that wasn't really the case, which is fine. So the company is completely doubling down on the hydrogen electric aspect of their business model, which it sounds like that's what's going to work the best for them. They are primarily aiming to be in the trucking business. They have some 800 orders for their trucks from Budweiser and tens of thousands of other pre-orders that they said. For their hydrogen, they have partnered with a Norwegian company who has been doing hydrogen for some 90 years, I believe is what they said. And then for their service network and their leasing and so forth, they partnered with riders. So they've got some major players working with them on this, and they seem very, very confident that this is what's going to work. Now, I don't know a whole lot about the hydrogen model other than what was presented at the event, so I can't really speak too much to that. I do know that there is kind of like this rift between hydrogen electric versus battery electric that has arisen and surrounding this company. Now, that is something I actually have thought about doing a complete video on its own. I spent quite a few hours on the internet last night going through, everything that is still available on the web when all that arose. So I'm not really going to get into it. During the event, Trevor Milton actually did address the debate a little bit, and part of the reason why they've decided to now produce battery electric versions of their trucks alongside the hydrogen electric ones is so that they're neutral in the debate between the 2 types of energy. So whichever one is going to work for whatever their customer needs, whatever their business model needs, that's what they're going to go with. They don't want to come across as, promoting hydrogen because that's what they need to sell, and then people don't believe them about what they have to say about hydrogen or what they say about batteries, because they're doing both. They're not going to undercut themselves selling one over the other if one actually is better. So that was what I got. I actually got a chance to speak with Trevor. He was on his way between a couple of things, and I just wanted to just kind of hear a face-to-face from him. I know there's a lot of back and forth that I found on the internet about the issue between the battery crowd and the hydrogen crowd. They're doing both because at the end of the day, the mission is to get emissions to be gone. So they want to end diesel. That is really their number one mission. And a lot of what they're doing with the hydrogen and the trucking industry is they're trying to create an experience that is one-to-one swappable with diesel. So it's like, it's a pretty big industry, right? And trying to change that, trying to turn the tide on something that huge, it's not going to go over too well, in their opinion, if you're trying to get them to do something that's totally new, that's going to require a shuffling of business practices and so forth. So they're trying to come in first, replace the diesel experience with a clean emissions experience that is driven by hydrogen. As far as their fuel cell technology, I know they've just invested $16 million into an advanced lab, and they have hundreds of more millions planned to continue and make sure these fuel cells are the best that they could possibly do. In the meantime, their goal is get the diesels off the road. So if you're up for clean emissions, we can all get on board with that. I'm from the Philadelphia area, so I took a long flight all the way across to the Phoenix airport, and from there I just Ubered over to the Talking Stick Resort, was where they had, their block of hotel rooms and everything. Gorgeous, gorgeous resort. I actually posted some things on Twitter about it and my Instagram. I actually used to live in Arizona during high school, so being back there for the first time, and gosh, it's probably been 10 years, I just forgot how gorgeous it was. So I was pretty stoked, pretty stunned. So I was walking into this event like pretty good mood already. Then we went downstairs, we got our press credentials. I had to ask like 7 people directions, felt pretty silly because it was a casino and resort, so it was pretty big. And I don't know if I was just tired or if I'm just generally bad with directions. I kept getting lost and going the wrong way. I mean, by the time I left, I was able to navigate. Anyway, so there was a room, we went and got our press credentials, and then you just go outside, and they had a shuttle that was going back and forth from the resort to the actual event. The event took place in this huge, you know, I guess a production event type venue. It was called World. I guess they host like car auctions there. They probably have, you know, musical stars there. I'm not super sure. It's a pretty big place. Obviously you need a big place if you're going to be coming out with some semi-trucks, right? Had a decent crowd. They had catering there. You walk in, there's, you know, all the tables, people walking around offering you drinks and food and stuff. For some reason, on our media schedule, it said there was like a dinner and opportunity to see new products. For some reason, it didn't occur to me that the dinner was all that catering stuff, because it was a blend of people, right? It wasn't just media that was there. It was a combination of media and then you know, investors and customers and partners and people. So it was the first night anyway, and apparently there was some 2,000 people that were there. In a place that big, it's like it doesn't feel like that many people, but honestly, like going back, I'm like, yeah, there probably were like 2,000 people there. So basically, I'm like hauling all my equipment everywhere. I'm trying to get media. I'm trying to, you know, take some video of myself. It felt kind of awkward because I don't have anybody with me. It was just, you know, I mean, there were other media people there, but I didn't have anybody else from Teslarati with me. So I'm kind of from the selfie generation, kind of, but I still feel awkward about it. So it's pretty exciting. Feel a little awkward walking around, talking to myself on a video camera, but such is the life. Overall, I think I got plenty of pictures, plenty of media. Being at one of these things live, I watched the live stream later when I got home, and I just have to say, seeing it live, being there in person, totally different experience. I mean, it's a different energy. People are excited, you know, especially being on the media aspect, because you're like walking around backstage. You are paying attention to what the people are paying attention to, and it's just, the vibe is totally different. You wouldn't necessarily pick up the excitement and the positivity that's going on unless you were actually there on the floor. So eventually, once the show itself started, media people, I think they had chairs for us up front that were reserved, but I ended up just staying in the back where there was like a platform and where all the cameras were, because I went ahead and set mine up because I wanted to be able to grab some screenshots and maybe use some B-roll footage for a video if I did one later, like I'm doing right now. One thing that kind of stunk about that was they had, because of the live stream, they had one of these cameras that were like, you know, roving around and following Trevor around as he was presenting, and, you know, focused on the products as they rolled them out and stuff. So that actually kind of ruined a lot of shots, because we had like this really pretty like big screen and some epic looking things, and you just have this like metal, you know, bar with a camera on it kind of sticking out into it. So that kind of stunk. But, you know, you live and you learn. Next time I will be aware of where the live stream cameras are going to be. Overall though, everyone I encountered at the event, very nice, very accommodating. You know, the executive team, they were pretty available throughout the event. In the beginning, it was kind of tough to get a hold of people because it was just go. You know, they got off the stage, ripping off their mic, you know, go to do something else, doing that, you know. They had like a quick press conference in the back, and I didn't realize it was starting like right after the show. You know, I thought we had to meet over by the Nikola Tray truck, and then they would guide us back to the conference room where they were having a press conference, but that was not the case. So by the time I made my way back out around with somebody else that was with me, they were kind of in the middle of it. So, and all the questions were kind of up by the time I got there, and I just kind of felt awkward having shown up late, so I didn't ask any questions. So when I did get a chance to ask Trevor about the battery aspect of things later the next day. I was thankful because I was like, oh shoot, I didn't ask a question, and that's like my sole purpose for being here is to question. But anyway, I got my question in about the battery electric stuff, and I was happy. If I had to say what my most positive takeaway was from this trip, it was feeling the team aspect, the heart aspect of this company. You know, I actually just did a podcast talking about the Nikola World event with Bodhi of Kilowatt, and we both kind of came away with the same feeling about the team. Everybody seemed to be, you know, pretty much on board with what the message was, and my takeaway from that was just after seeing kind of like this real big team-oriented feel of the company, that it's a lot easier to stay on message, everyone to stay on message when everyone is part of the message. I mean, maybe that's what it was. I don't have any real insight of what actually goes on behind the scenes, but what I was impressed by was during the presentation he had a picture of him in his basement, you know, with the original team, and then he had that original team come up on stage, and they are still with the company. And I mean, that's kind of tough for any company to pull off. It's not like a knock against anybody who loses members or anything or has turnover. It's a tough business when you're a startup. But I was impressed that they still had the original team. And then the one thing that the live stream didn't capture very well, that I thought was super cool, was when he then brought the rest of the team up, everybody else that worked for the company, to come up on stage after he had the original team. And it was just cool, you know, because all these people were like arising from the crowd and, you know, making their way up to the front. And it just kind of like, you know, oh yeah, it was just kind of, you know, a heartstring moment. It's like, hey, these are the people who are taking on an industry that is going to be pretty tough to beat, you know. They're trying, everyone who works for that company is trying to do something good in the world, and it's just kind of cool to see it, you know. That's not saying that other companies aren't like that, just saying that my impression of Nikola Motors was that the company had a lot of heart and they had a lot of goodwill. Now, one of the biggest parts of this presentation, at least the impression I got from talking to other people who were there and who had been, you know, kind of on the Nikola train, lack of a better phrase, since, you know, they came out in like 2016, maybe even before that. What they really wanted to see was their trucks working. They wanted to see, you know, rolling, moving, well-tested trucks. I think people were getting kind of jaded about where this company's future was going, because here you have Tesla, who almost seems like they came out with a semi just because they could, and they've already got this. They got 2 of them on the road, and they have all these test mules that are rolling around. They're releasing video of, you know, delivering their customers, you know, their Tesla cars with their Tesla semi. I mean, it makes for pretty good PR. And then so when you have another company who actually released their truck before, they don't have any on the road and they're not really even testing them yet. It's like, oh boy, what were you guys doing? What's the holdup? You know, it's like, oh, is it the hydrogen thing? You know, but anyway, I did notice kind of a shift in the criticism, you know, once the video came out. These guys are working, you know, seeing these trucks. I mean, they drive right by and the only thing you could hear were the tires. It's pretty cool. So I'm actually, just in general, looking forward to seeing that particular aspect take over the trucking industry. Okay, now what else can I say? Let me have a look at these stats here that I have on my iPad. It has 2,000 foot-pounds of torque, 1,000 horsepower, 500 to 750 miles of range, about 15 to 20 minutes of refuel time. Now, the refueling time apparently is a big component of the one-to-one diesel swap that they're going for. It's one of the biggest downsides of battery electric vehicles, no matter what the industry is. The technology is improving, things are getting quicker. You know, you just recently saw version 3 superchargers, you know, now it's like 1,000 miles per hour charging time. But I mean, you can only charge it so fast before you're going to degrade the battery. So when they say hydrogen electric trucks, it's, you might know this, you might not, but I have come across a couple of people who didn't quite understand what was going on inside that truck. They still are using batteries. They're just charging the batteries using the hydrogen, which is where people say, well, why don't you just, if you're going to be charging a battery anyway, why don't you just go straight to the source and plug it in? The problem is it just takes so long to charge the battery. The hydrogen is charging it as they go, so it extends the range, and it also quickens the refill time. So you just plug in your hydrogen, fill up the tank, and it keeps your battery charged. They can go up to like 1,000 miles or so, instead of charging every like 500 miles and then having to wait however long for the battery. I mean, that's the argument. Nikola Tre, they didn't have rolling around the track or whatever. They only did the two Nikola 2s on the track. Actually, a cool thing that you may or may not have totally felt from just watching the live stream, when he brought the whole team up, the whole Nikola team up on the stage, and then he had everybody kind of go out in a line and kind of create like a hallway, right? And then they brought in the Nikola 2 in there, and the Tre had come out. But I just thought that was really cool, because this is what they'd all worked for. This is all what they created, and they were all just standing in line as their creation kind of came through. It was the Stormtrooper white Nikola 2 that came out there. About the trucks and everything, all the stats, all the torque, all those techie details. You can look those up, read them. I can't really do as much justice as just looking at the graphics that they've produced and all the information they've put out already. I'm here to give you the behind the scenes perspective, because that's not quite as available. After the main event, they had a country artist come out. His name is Frankie Ballard. If you're a country fan, you probably heard a couple of his songs. I'd heard a couple of his songs. Something that was so cool to me about it was he was such a good performer. Like, I haven't seen too many actual like country artists on stage. I listened to a lot of like heavy metal growing up and stuff, so that's really where all my live experience background was, and even the bands I was in, it was all like 80s covers bands and stuff. So it was really cool to see. He's so talented. His dance, it had such like a groove with his band. It was so cool. And then you see like these trucks in the background. He actually made a joke during the event. I just want you to know all my equipment is, it's all electric, emissions free. So, ha ha ha. It was a funny nerd joke, but it worked with the crowd. Overall, I had a great time. It was a beautiful resort, beautiful state, beautiful. It was great. I mean, the mood was good. The experience was just as good. So I had fun. I look forward to seeing this company grow, see what happens in the future, continue to report on them, and I guess I'll end on that. Alright, I'll see you later. Thanks for watching.